We love supporting and promoting the creators of musical theater throughout the world, and we would love to have your support as well. Go to musicaltheaterradio.com and click on the Become a Patron button, because a supportive community is a strong community. Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. We are back for another interview with someone who is a lover, has a passion for musicals, and also singing vampires. We'll get more into that, obviously. I'd like to welcome to the show Ned Donovan. Ned, welcome.
Thanks. That's a phenomenal intro. I will take it.
Awesome. So I want to know who Ned is in 30 seconds. Give us your 30-second bio.
Oh, it's funny because I have to do this for projects so often and I'm never good at doing it for myself. I am an actor, singer, content creator who calls himself a multi-hyphenate because I found a long time ago I would rather learn new skills and create exactly the way I want to create than have to be held back by not having the resources to create content. So I call myself an actor first. That's what I do. It's what I'm from. But I am also a content creator, a writer, an editor, a filmmaker, a podcaster. I am a person who loves to create content.
21st century Renaissance man. You can do a little bit of everything.
Thanks. I'll take that. That's going on my LinkedIn. Thank you.
Nice. You're welcome. It's yours. I won't charge you a thing. Awesome. So I want to take it back. I asked this of all my guests, the 30-second bio, but also, were you always into musical theater? When you were a kid growing up, was that something you knew about, you loved, or did you grow into it later in life?
I wish I could say yes to that question.
Okay.
I strongly regret many of my choices as a young male in United States of America, growing up in the height of toxic masculinity. Musical theater and I weren't friends, and I loved the concept of dance, but dance wasn't what boys do, so I didn't take any, and I played a lot of sports, and I love sports. I in no way want to say that I wish I hadn't played sports. Sports built me into the human I am today, but I was not very good at school, and I was always, back to the content creation thing, I spent my time doing extracurricular activities that I mostly created. So I played sports, but I also founded an a cappella group, and I did a bunch of bands, and I wrote a bunch of music, and I did a bunch of theater in high school, outside of school, and in doing that, I never really did any homework, and I mostly kind of failed my way through high school. And so coming out of high school, it became increasingly clear to me if I wanted to go to college, in any college that would accept me, it had to be for sports or acting. And one of those, shockingly, is a more viable career option than the other. It's so...
Not even sure which one that is, actually.
I know. It's so... I had been recruited for soccer and lacrosse to a bunch of schools, and I only applied to colleges that had recruited me for sports that also had musical theater performance programs. And didn't tell, for any schools that did the thing where they flew me out to meet their coach, I just didn't tell them I wasn't gonna do it. It was purely so I could get on whatever VIP list got me easier admission. And I've always said of the schools that I ended up applying to, a good chunk of them had top tier musical theater programs. And I've always said I'm not a very spiritual person, but someone in the universe was trying to tell me you should probably make a change. So I say I found musical theater for real freshman, sophomore year of high school. I was aware of it. My mother had been a professional actress for a small amount of time and was a huge lover of musical theater. So I was aware, I'd heard the tunes, but I wasn't in it until high school.
Okay, nice. So where did you eventually end up?
I went to Ithaca College in upstate New York.
Okay. And for lacrosse or soccer?
Neither, for musical theater performance.
Tell more.
They had contacted me originally as a soccer player. And I had originally started talking to the school because of that. However, my mother had gone to Cornell University, which is in the same town as Ithaca College, Ithaca, New York. And my mom forced me to apply. She was like, if you're going to go to school for musical theater, Ithaca has to be on your list. And I was like, I want to go to a big city. I'm from Maine. I need to be in an urban environment. Ithaca's small. How dare you? But she told me she wouldn't pay for my other application fees if I didn't apply to Ithaca. So I applied to Ithaca and then was waitlisted at a few places, rejected from nearly everywhere, and accepted to a couple of schools. And when I was doing my college tour, it had come down to 2 schools. Won't name the other one because my experience there wasn't great. And I was sure I was going to the other school. And so I went to Ithaca to appease my mom just to visit. And I had planned 2 days in Ithaca and 5 days at the other school. And I ended up spending 4 days at Ithaca. I just didn't leave. And then I got to the other school, and 12 hours in, I went to their head of faculty and was like, look, I thank you for the time. I should go. I'm not going to come here. And that was that.
Nice. So you ended up at Ithaca, and how was that experience for you? Like, some people love their experiences in school, and some people just grind through it and get through it. What was your experience?
I am an upper middle class, straight white kid from New England. So Ithaca fit my mold perfectly. It was exactly what I needed. I was very overwhelmed when I got to college. You know, all of my classmates basically had been doing this for every moment they'd been breathing. And I came in being like, who likes sports? And so that was weird. And my class was incredible, but my freshman year was a real tough time because I had spent so much time in high school not doing homework. It became weird to understand how to do homework when I really wanted to do it. And so I was doing very poorly in my classes. And one of my professors, Cynthia Henderson, took me aside and she said, halfway through my first semester freshman year, she said, Ned, you have a D- in my class, and you can either shape up or ship out. And that was sort of the start of my Ithaca College understanding. Ithaca trained me to be an artist. They are phenomenal at it. They made me the actor I am, and they gave me the freedom. So one of my other 8 million careers hyphenates is I realized going into college, most people need to be a triple threat. But someone wisely once told me that doesn't mean a singer, actor, dancer. It just means a something, something, something. Yeah. And I was never going to be a dancer. I never really stretched doing sports. So my entire body was formed inflexible, true to this day. I can touch my toes. That took 20 years of work. But I was never going to be a dancer because I was starting late. I'd taken a couple dance classes to get into college, but that was it. And, you know, some of my classmates have been doing it since they were 3. Like, I was just never going to be able to get to that professional level. So I took courses in staged combat and became a fight director. Nice. And so Ithaca gave me the space to work with other students as a fight director. I worked with the film school a lot, which allowed me to do a lot of, weapons work and sword fights. And I did a lot of Shakespeare. And so Ithaca really gave me the space to realize that I wanted to be a multi-hyphenate because it allowed me to realize I enjoyed things that were musical theater and not musical theater.
Nice. Yeah. A lot of actors go in wanting to be that triple set, that classic singer, actor, dancer. But like you said, it's triple threat could mean anything. And I always applaud people who find that other thing within theater, because let's be honest, what you're doing with the stage combat, just that one alone, will be able to be used in other
It's
areas.
Usable. And Ithaca itself, I mean, Ithaca College, don't get mad at me if you disagree with this analysis, but Ithaca is an acting first school. Some schools are singing first schools, some first are dancing first schools, and I don't think there's anything wrong with any of that. But me, Ned, was never going to be a dancer first. And I think I'm a fine vocalist, but I'm not walking onto Broadway and being the thing that people are like, oh my God, this guy needs to open his mouth and sing all the time. Yeah. And so for me, it was always going to be an acting first focus. And so Ithaca really, in my opinion, gives all musical theater majors a BFA in acting with a double minor in music and dance. And that's exactly what I, Ned, needed because I do a lot of work in Shakespeare. I do a lot of work on film and TV. I just signed a contract to shoot a new socially distant movie in Kentucky. These are all things that Ithaca really trained me for that in high school I never really thought about.
Yeah. Nice. So did they consider you an actor? Because it was funny when I went to Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario here.
Right.
And it's stupid, but they never considered me a singer. I was like, my singing teacher went, what is wrong with these people? But I always got those character roles, the weird ones, but just fine, though I'll have more work for the rest of my life than the leading person. What about yourself? What was that first role or some of the roles that you got there?
So Ithaca and I had a weird relationship. I think they loved me, and I think they didn't realize they loved me. Yeah. So on the main stage, like in school, my first role was understudying for William Finn's A New Brain. I understudied the priest. And then my second role was in the ensemble of Children of Eden by Stephen Schwartz. But then my third role was fight directing and ensemble, like secondary character in Much Ado About Nothing. And then my fourth role was the male Greek chorus in Paula Vogel's How I Learned to Drive. And my fifth role was as a soldier, a secondary character in a play called Plumfield Rock. So Ithaca really let me be an actor. I think I was always an actor. I really do say I was a singer first for a long time, and Ithaca molded me to realize that was only because I was a bad actor, and then they made me a good actor.
Nice.
Like my singing stayed consistently. I'm good at singing, but I'm better at acting now. It just wasn't true when I got to college.
Nice. Well, that's a good thing. You progressed, you grew, you got better. Which is
I
the point of the
do.
school.
And Ithaca really, I think, treated me as an actor. There was only once that they really said, like, you're a musical theater person. And it was when senior year, I was up for 2 different roles of play in a musical. And they're like, you've never really had like a role in a musical. You should probably do the musical, right? And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's fair.
All right. You graduated from Ithaca. What did you do? What happened?
I moved to first, I was very fortunate to have 3 contracts coming out of school. I also, and this is my soapbox for people who like musical theater, especially kids who might be in college. Ithaca does a New York City showcase. We went down. We do it in front of agents and casting directors and things like that. And at the end, when you're leaving, the school receives feedback, and then they compile your personal feedback or contacts list, and they send it to you. And I received a blank list. I was not wanted coming out of school.
Okay.
And I also came out of college with 3 contracts at good theaters. And I've always said a lot of people put their emphasis on agents and showcases, especially as college students. And I am living proof that, especially in my first 5 years in this industry, I was as successful, if not more successful, than most of my classmates. And most of my classmates did not get a blank sheet at showcase. So I graduated and moved. I went immediately to Maine for a contract of a new Burt Bacharach musical called Bert and Me by Larry McKenna. And then I left that contract and went to upstate New York to do a production of My Fair Lady as a member of the Cockney Chorus. Mm-hmm. And then I went basically straight from there I moved to New York City from that contract. And the next day from moving into my apartment, I left on a contract in Maine, doing a production of Gershwin's Of Thee I Sing. Oh, yeah. And then I moved back to New York and really started my career as an auditioning actor in New York City kind of mid-fall, specifically arriving 2 weeks before Hurricane Sandy. So that's always fun.
You get caught up in these disaster things.
Yeah, I really arrive at terrible times.
Is there a connection here we don't know about? Is it?
I don't know. How's your internet doing?
Yeah. For the listeners, my internet. It took me like 5 minutes to get on to talk to Ned today. It kept crashing, and last week there was other problems. Yeah.
So anyway, maybe
it is you.
The consistent theme here was me. But so, yeah, I moved to New York and then I worked as an actor. I mean, I paid my bills doing other things. And something I'm very fortunate of is I've always been a technical person. When I was in high school, I wrote code and things like that just for fun. And I wrote music and I kind of understood all that stuff. And so for me, I realized pretty quickly, I don't know if you knew this, but musical theater doesn't pay very well, especially when you're a non-union fresh college graduate.
What?
I know. And so I realized if I was going to be able, because I didn't come in with any kind of savings, like I was moving in and I had to kind of become profitable very fast or go homeless, that if I wanted to be able to take jobs that would build my career, I needed a secondary career I could perform from those theaters. And so I started working in social media management and website design, and I started copywriting for websites and blogs and things like that. And so these were all things I could do at home after my show, which was paying me, $112 a week to make sure that I could still eat.
Yeah. And like you talked before, the triple threat, what does that mean? It's diversity. It's being able to do this. And from the sounds of it, every skill you've learned, you've been able to take it and grab that. And it's moved you forward to be able to do more things.
And just apply it to somewhere. And I've slowly built a time where my career now, so I did that for 5 years. I worked around the country. I worked at a theater in Wisconsin for a year. That's where I really cut my teeth the most. And then I joined the Actors Equity Association in the summer of 2015, moved back to New York. And as happens to many actors, when you join the Actors Equity Association, my career stopped because you're now going up against people with Broadway credits, not non-union actors. Yeah. And so there's all of a sudden a whole new criteria for getting hired. But I was very fortunate. I was cast in a new musical by Carner and Gregor that was in development, an adaptation. I can't tell you what it's an adaptation of, but an adaptation of a property owned by a major corporation.
Okay.
And I just realized what my contract says. And
so close.
You got very close there. I was going to have to tell you to cut something. So anyway, I started doing that. Guys, if you do some Googling on me, you can figure it out. It's not that hard to figure out. I just can't tell you.
Let's just say I'm a spy for that company we were testing you.
I'm just saying, like, there's YouTube videos that have it in the title. So I was doing that and had a very unfortunate situation. Unfortunate's like the worst way to describe it, but how else? My father ended up in the hospital and ended up very sick and passed away at the very beginning of 2016. And so I moved to his house in Pennsylvania and handled his estate and kind of did all that. And then I got back to New York in the summer of 2016 and was in a musical theater class, kind of getting ready to come back to the industry. And I'd been having really bad allergies. And all of a sudden in the middle of class, my voice stopped working, no sound. And I went to an ENT and discovered I had hemorrhaged my vocal cords and had a massive polyp and was unable to phonate. And so they put me on these massive steroids. Now, what's funny about all this is, and we'll get to that, you'll think of the years we talk about for these future projects. One of my main projects was in the middle of filming when this all happened. And so if you listen to me in season 1 of The Hunted Encore and me in season 2 of The Hunted Encore, you'll be like, that kid had throat surgery. It is a night and day difference. So I had throat surgery at the end of the summer, and then that took me back out for another 6 months-ish. And when I came back from my throat surgery, unfortunately, 1 week after I was cleared to start auditioning, my mother had a tumor declared terminal, and I had to move home to Maine and take care of her till she passed away. And then I just decided I hated New York, and I rented a house in the middle of the woods for 9 months, and I just lived there until I ran out of money.
Jeez.
But by then, that's like my acting career trajectory. But by then I had started producing podcasts and films and scripts and albums. And all of this was kind of to keep myself creative in the midst of these awful life situations, to feel like I could be part of an industry somehow. But when I got back to New York, those projects had become the thing people knew me for. So I decided to take a break from acting that wasn't in my own projects and really focus on getting these projects up, because I decided it was probably more likely these projects could be successful and bring me back to acting than it was to stop producing successful things and start over. And that's kind of where I find myself today.
Okay. Well, you've already mentioned it. Let's lead into your singing vampires.
Singing vampires.
Tell us a little bit about the singing vampires.
Whew. So remember that thing where I said I did fights?
Yes.
So back in 2009, I was part of a web series called The Hunted. And The Hunted is the longest running web series on the internet. First episodes in 2001, predates YouTube, uploaded in Real Player, if anyone remembers Real Player. And there was a contest. The show is, the tagline was Buffy Meets Cops. And it was an action comedy, fake mockumentary about vampire slayers. And the show was written as a way for Bob, the lead actor, to 1, make content, and 2, give his students sword fighting outlet. Like when you take singing lessons, you can go sing. When you take acting lessons, you can go act, but you can't go fight. Like there's no outlet for you. So he made a show to give his students like a showcase. And people started saying I want to do this with my students. And so he created a contest where anyone could submit a single episode, and if it won, you were then allowed to continue your show as a spinoff. And I was part of one, didn't win, but he liked our show a lot. So he called us and was like, hey, do you want to keep going? And so I created a spinoff in college called The Hunted Expulsion, which was all theater students fighting vampires. Okay. And it's terrible. It's on YouTube. Have a great time. It's so bad. Remember that thing where I said I became an actor? This was pre that. So, what happened was in 2016, while my father was passing away, I created an album with some people, including a former guest of yours, Scott Wasserman, an album called Give My Regards to Broadway, Classic Show Tunes Reimagined. And that was an album of 10 1960 or earlier show tunes reimagined for today's radio. And Bob, the original creator of The Hunted, heard that album and called me and was like, hey, I've always wanted a musical version of my show. Would you consider making a musical episode? And I don't really do things by half. So instead of making a musical episode, we hired 7 up-and-coming musical theater composers, including Scott Wasserman, and we wrote an original vampire web series musical about sword. It's an action comedy, rock musical, mockumentary web series about New York City vampire slayers.
And what happened with it? I've seen it online, and where did it go?
Season 1 went nowhere, which is really humbling. Look, season 1 is wonderful. I love the show. I actually still listen to the soundtracks, which are available on iTunes and all that, to this day, because I think we did a phenomenal job. But we didn't know what we wanted to make, and it was so many dashes and genre smashes that we didn't really know how we wanted to make it. And so about halfway through filming the first season, we all had a production meeting. We were like, this is what we should have done. But by then we were out of budget, so we just finished the show that we had made. And people liked it. It's fun. The whole show is shot on a single camera take. So it feels like a documentary where the cameraman is wearing a shoulder-mounted camera, and he's a character who talks in the show. It's awesome, but it's like a really weird thing to consume. But the show was successful enough that we decided to make a second season the way we wished we had done it. And so in the summer of 2017, we filmed another set of episodes. But this time, the way the show plays out is the scene work is the same single camera, one take, but all the songs become weird world explosion music videos. And so in doing so, the show is just a very different level of camp than the first season. And that we sent that to film festivals around the world. We ended up winning a little over 70 awards at about 50 festivals worldwide. Wow. There's a thing called the Web Series World Cup, which is a collection of the biggest web series festivals in the world. And you get ranked by acceptances, nominations, and wins. And then they release a global ranking every year. And so we ended up number 4 from the United States, number 23 worldwide for the 2018 Web Series World Cup. And that show, now the 2 seasons are available on a few streaming platforms, Sika TV, streamingmusicals.com, and the Fantasy Network. And we've written seasons 3 and 4, but we currently don't have a budget to make them.
Okay. So what did you learn from doing that series? What did you learn? Where does it take in you? What experiences have you been able to parlay that into?
I have always never wanted to only be creative on someone else's dime. It doesn't interest me. I love commercial theater, and I love all the times I've worked in TV and film and everything else. But when that's the only thing I'm doing, when all I'm doing is auditioning and basically asking people to hire me, it just starts to become like a creativity suck, and I don't perform as well. And what The Hunted really proved for me is I can make art that I want to watch, and people will also want to watch it. And there's no space for my web series on commercial television. It doesn't exist. You can't release an action comedy, rock musical, mockumentary TV show. It's not a thing. But on the web, with this community of people who love niche content, different content, you can do that. I've always said I'd never want to make something someone else is making. I'd rather just watch theirs. And so if I'm going to make a project, it has to be either unique in some way, or I feel that what I'm going to bring to it is better than currently exists. And The Hunted Encore was a perfect encapsulation of you can be successful making something no one is asking for, but people realize they want.
Okay. What doors did it open?
I interviewed with a few big name networks, specifically to potentially join the team of some musical TV shows as a writer, but also to join the team of every TV show, especially like sci-fi fantasy, releases a musical episode. Yes. So I started interviewing to potentially become the guy who creates those episodes. Nothing has come of it yet. You'll look at my IMDb and you will not see it, but those conversations started to happen. Yeah. We'll get to my more current projects, but the Fantasy Network, where The Hunted Encore is currently streaming and available, I'm working with them on 5 projects right now, and all of them are projects they called me for because they saw The Hunted Encore at a film festival. So as I've said to many people, the wonderful part about the internet, in a way that theater can't be, sorry theater, I love you, is it lives forever, which means you can make a project and move on, and people might find it 2 years later, and it's going to be just as successful as if they found it when it was active. And that is why the Hunted Encore is the perfect proof in the pudding for that for me. And it kind of gave me my life direction for how I create.
Very nice. Very nice. So I would love to talk more about, give my regards to the Broadway CD, because
Yeah.
that's more my wheelhouse of the radio
Sure.
station. And so tell us a little bit about how that, because I've listened to some of the songs and they're very cool. So tell
They're
us
weird.
a little bit.
Yeah, I was in a production of Damn Yankees, and I was backstage with my cast, and we always used to joke that Near to You from Act 2, which, by the way, I think is one of the most beautiful songs in the musical theater canon, sounded exactly like a Muse rock song.
Okay.
And we used to laugh about it. And then I was in a production of Once Upon a Mattress, and we would always be back. I was the minstrel, so I didn't get to sing this song, but backstage, people during Yesterday I Loved You, we would all joke that the halftime break of the chorus of I openly confess tonight I love you less felt like a dubstep break. And so we used to joke that when it dropped to halftime, we would go into this like really hard, heavy dubstep break inside one of the most pretty melodies ever made. And so then I had two songs that I've been laughing about. And I called my one of my best friends growing up, Marcus Thorne Bagala. Shout out to Marcus. Marcus is a film composer and songwriter. Mm-hmm. And I was like, we should make this album. And he was feeling similarly creatively stifled, where he was only making art for other people. And so he was like, yeah, let's do it as a way to just be artistic and fun. And so that was the genesis of the project. We started thinking of other potential options. We knew we wanted to make a hip hop song. We knew we wanted to make a pop song. We wanted a folk song. So we started looking for songs that would kind of fit. And the real message of the piece was, do these songs that are arguably some of the greatest songs ever written hold up in the way people listen to radio today? And we think the answer was a resounding yes. So we produced the opening track is Give My Regards to Broadway, obviously, by George Cohen. And that was produced as a ska track, like a ska punk track. And then we brought in Scott Wasserman from Broadway's Hamilton, and he built us a beat on Getting Married Today from Company that we then brought in Oki Ariete and Naudawan from Hamilton to rap as a hip hop like gay marriage club anthem, featuring Travis Kent from Broadway's Disaster, among other things. He's he sings the hook. And then we just kind of started going through. We did Near to You as a track in the style of Muse, and we did Yesterday I Loved You as a dubstep break with a couple of electronic music artists. And it just turned into this kind of weird, wacky project that you can only find on SoundCloud, people. We didn't put it up for sale anywhere, but go listen to it. It's fun. It's a parody album that we think proves these songs are better than people give them credit for when you transcribe them.
Yeah, and it's so many people don't know about. I love the fact that you chose stuff from the 60s and in past, because those are so many shows and songs that people lose track of, or they as I love Hamilton and I love Dear Evan Hansen, they say that they forget that all these fantastic songs those songs were built on the ones.
Absolutely. And pop sensibilities change, but the structure of writing a song hasn't really changed that much. So the real question was, can these chord structures, can these complex melodies, because the thing is like complex melody is something you don't see a lot in pop, not because pop is dumbed down, but because it doesn't fit the sensibility of the time, which is casual listening. But music used to be an active listening exercise, so those songs are written from that standpoint, versus a lot of music these days is meant to be your coffee shop music. It's meant to be what you listen to while you're doing something else, and that was not available in the 30s and 40s because you had to actively choose to see things or listen to a vinyl. And because of that, the music is just written differently.
Yep. Yeah, I love this stuff from the 60s and before. It's just, it's not played enough. People just don't know enough about it.
Well, and the only track we did two tracks that didn't fit the theme particularly. We did a song we called Money, which was, again, built by Scott Wasserman, but we brought in 3 Brooklyn rappers and we sampled Money from Cabaret as the hook.
Mhm.
Money makes the world go around, but as a hip hop beat that turns into three rappers rapping about money.
Yeah.
And it was a blast. And then the other one was, because my father passed away about 2 months before we released the album, we were most of the way done. My friend Chris LaRosa, who's now a composer for the United States Marine Band, I believe, might be Army Band, but Chris, don't be mad that I got that wrong. But he arranged new words from In the Beginning by Maury Yeston, which is a beautiful song of a father singing to a son. And we turned it into a folk rock arrangement with a 4-piece orchestra, including Katrina Lenk from the band's Visit was playing viola for us. And we have this wonderful piece of we call it a bonus track because it doesn't fit the theme of the piece.
Yeah. But they all, I listened to them. They all sound great. It's
Thank
very
you.
cool what you've done with them. Yeah.
We're hoping to turn it into a live show. We're hoping that we can turn it into kind of a cabaret series where we bring in Broadway singers, take them around New York doing updated classic show tunes.
Maybe you can, do a double night of your stuff and then Scott's other stuff from the Disco Sondheim.
I would love that. Disco Sondheim is a project that I am mad I didn't think of.
Oh, we played on the station, and as soon as I heard that, I had to contact Scott. And
yeah, I'm actually angry it wasn't my idea.
But what you did is great. So
thank you.
It's a compliment to
listeners. I'd love for you to check it out. And Scott is amazing, and he has every musical thing I've ever done, with the exception of my production company releases a Christmas album every year of original holiday music. Scott has written for every other musical project I've done. So, go check out Scott's work. He's good at what he does.
Very true. Very true. So what are you doing now, Ned? You got the vampires, you've got this Give My Rose Broadway. What are you doing now? Considering what everything's going on.
Doing a lot of musical theater.
Okay.
I will admit, I miss it dreadfully.
Yeah.
So the first podcast I produced when I was still doing musical theater was called At the Table, a play reading series. We produced new plays from emerging playwrights as audio dramas with Broadway actors. And we did that for about 1.5 years. It was very expensive and very time consuming, and we all ran out of money and energy, and it's kind of lapsed. We always intended to bring it back if we could partner with a theater or something that allowed us to not be spending money out of pocket that we didn't have. And then I don't know if you heard about it, but a global pandemic hit. And so
really? Tell us more.
Yeah, I know. It really came, it's something that they're not talking enough about. And we called each other and we said, we should come back. And we can't do full plays, but there needs to be new theater in this time where there's nothing.
Yes.
And we have a platform that we can use to do that. So we are taking submissions of 10 to 20 minute plays from up and coming playwrights that we produce with Broadway television and film talent as just fun, sometimes sad, but little bite-sized pieces of new theater that we hope introduces audiences to playwrights to watch and actors to follow, because it's already hard enough for playwrights to get noticed these days, like let alone inside an entire, industry shutdown, where when the industry comes back, by necessity, theaters are going to have to turn to things people know. They can't take risks because they're out of money. So new playwrights, up and coming playwrights, are going to be ignored for a large chunk of time. And that's wrong. It's just wrong. And listeners, do what you can to support new theater. Do what you can to see shows you've never heard of, because some of the most gorgeous, stunning work that ends up on Broadway starts at a small little 50-seat theater in Vancouver. And that only happens because people are willing to not just see things that comfort them, but see things that they don't know the experience for.
Yes.
And so we are part of that journey. We release a new play every 2 weeks, 10 to 20 minutes. It's myself and Rachel Flynn, who listeners might know from Heathers the musical. We co-host the show. She's our artistic director. And so I work on that. I have a second podcast called Encounter Party, which is on my myriad of things I did as a kid. I'm a big freaking nerd. And I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons as a kid, and I read a lot of fantasy novels, and I watched a lot of sci-fi movies. And Encounter Party is 6 professional voice actors and improv artists playing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that is written by an award-winning playwright that's then heavily edited to feel like an audio drama. So we say about 3.5 hours of playtime becomes a 50-minute episode. It gets heavily edited down, and it's top-notch improv actors inside a epic, compelling, apocalyptic fantasy story. And that is my main project right now.
Okay.
We've got 2 full seasons available wherever you listen to podcasts. The first season is 20 episodes. The second season is 19 episodes. We have a third season recorded. And in exciting news, people seem to like our show. Thank you, listeners.
Nice.
And we've been picked up by the Fantasy Network, as I mentioned before, to produce a new campaign, an all new story with all new characters, but the same acting team, as a video series that we'll record for their streaming service and also release as a podcast. So that is kind of what a lot of my time is spent doing right now, is editing Dungeons and Dragons content.
You know what? My kids listen to Dungeons and Dragons podcast. I'll have to find out if it's yours. And
if your kids are cool with, if you're cool with your kids listening to swearing, bring them on. But it's definitely not the most safe for work.
Oh, okay. Is it PG-13 or is
I
it,
would call it
R?
PG-13 with a lot of F-bombs. Content wise, it is 100% good. Improv wise, when myself mostly gets startled by something because it's all improv, so I don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
I tend to exclaim voraciously, we'll call it. So I would love for your kids to check us out. But what I will say, 2 things. One, I'm working on 3 new audio fiction pieces with an amazing team that are coming soon that will be entirely safe for work. They're not necessarily Dungeons and Dragons content, but they're all fantasy content.
Okay.
I don't know when you're releasing this, but I feel confident, unless we're live right now, because we're all signing contracts like today. Okay. So I can announce this because it will be public by the time this comes out.
Yes, for sure.
The first one is called Fantasy Sports Ball, and we're making a fake sports show where the tagline is the sports are fake, the highlights aren't real, the debates are monstrous. And it's 3 sketch comedy artists making a sports show about fantasy sports that do not exist.
Okay.
Our second piece is called Living in Fantasy, which is a news satire program. And it's a hard-hitting journalist who's sick of adventure stories ignoring real people. So the tagline is real stories of real people from the fantasy realm. And the first episode is a deep dive look at the economic impact of a dragon moving in next door to a village. And then the second episode is about the epidemic of high school students getting addicted to shape-shifting magic and dropping out of school. Our last piece is called Rude Mechanical, and it is a podcast in the style of Serial or S-Town that is about an investigative journalist who's convinced that the CEO of a film company is an alien, and she's trying to solve the mystery.
Nice. Well, this will be released after all this stuff comes out. So
great.
All good. It's a good push.
Look at those things coming to the Fantasy Network this fall.
There we go. Awesome. Ned, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been a blast.
About everything. But before we go,
okay.
I always ask each one of my guests 3 questions. Now, there's no right or wrong answer. There's one wrong answer. Okay, let's be honest.
Oh, no.
But the 3 questions. All right. So question number 1 for you. Who is your favorite creator or team when it comes to either music, lyrics, or book?
Cy Coleman.
Cy Coleman?
Cy Coleman, David Zippel as a collaborator if you want, but Cy Coleman. Cy Coleman is, in my opinion, the most underrated composer of all time. And every single show Cy Coleman wrote from a musical perspective, whether or not you like the book and lyrics, whether or not you like the story, is perfect. He wrote perfect music, and Cy Coleman is criminally underperformed worldwide.
You chose the exact same one I choose for
hey!
I love I love My Wife is one of my favorites to listen
to. City of Angels is
for sure
one of the greatest shows of all time. The Rink is shockingly underrated. Listen to shout out to Cy Coleman. Go listen to some Cy Coleman, people.
I will give you bonus points for saying Cy, because he's by far my favorite composer. Nice. All right. Question number 2. What other horror movie monster do you think should get its own musical? Frankenstein does, Dracula has, but what other horror movie monsters do you think?
Okay. I don't love the gimmicky musical, and I'm prefacing this by saying Evil Dead the musical is one of my favorite things of all time. I do love a gimmicky musical, but I don't love a musical whose whether or not it is good or bad is fundamentally built on a gimmick.
Yeah.
And I think Evil Dead the musical is a good musical in its own right and happens to be gimmicky.
Yes.
So in that regard, I get nervous by questions like this because it's sort of like what movie should be adapted. My answer is like, ooh, what story should be adapted? Let's start there.
But this can be a joke one. I'm throwing anything out there as goofy as possible.
Absolutely. So for horror movie, there is a horror movie.
Yeah.
I've actually said this to people usually after a few whiskeys. There is a horror movie from the early thousands. I think it's like 2004-ish, called Darkness Falls.
Yeah.
Darkness Falls was a horror movie about the Tooth Fairy. And that movie is insane. And I have said for a long time that it would make a hilarious parody musical, especially if it was a film. Like a film parody musical, if that would be perfect. But I will also say, and if anyone steals this idea, it's in writing here that I will sue you. So don't you do it. My favorite horror movie is this British horror movie called Dog Soldiers, which is a movie about a platoon of British soldiers who think they're in a war game against special forces, but are actually being hunted by werewolves. And it is insane. And the whole movie takes place in one place, in a house. And I have been wanting my entire career to adapt Dog Soldiers as a stage play where the set is just a house cut in half so you can see every room. And it's just a bunch of soldiers in a war with werewolves.
You do that, I am there.
So it's not a musical, but I do want to do I do want to do it.
Nice. I know, because there's have been good and bad. Like Carrie obviously got turned into a musical, and that it is what it is. Teeth. Have you seen
but
Teeth?
Shout out to Carrie 2, the parody musical by Preston Allen. Preston is incredible. He wrote the second season music of The Hunted Encore, so everyone can understand. And Preston wrote an unbelievable parody musical of Carrie 2 that is make your theaters do it for Halloween. It's so good.
And speaking of Evil Dead, I got to see Evil Dead in Toronto. I think it was the second incarnation. Like they'd launched in August and I got to see it in October, and it was awesome. Did
you see it when it still had a third act?
It
had a third act that took place in like the Dark Ages.
It's so long ago. I just want to show you. They can't see it on the radio, but I've got the the original Evil Dead musical poster from.
I love that. I was in a musical with the guy who played I don't even remember the character's name. Jake. He played Jake off Broadway, and that dude. He's the guy on the recording, and I have been listening to his voice since I was like 14 years old.
Yes, again, bonus points for choosing Evil Dead and talking about Evil Dead. You are killing this questions.
Nailed it. What's number 3?
You know what? It doesn't even matter what you give, whether the correct answer or not. I'll give you the question, but you've passed anyways. But
great.
Audiences eating food in the theater, yes or no?
Ooh, hard answer. I'm going to give this a very short but soapboxy answer.
Okay.
I think one of the worst things about theater is the hoity-toity stuck-uppedness about what theater has to be in order to be good. I hate it. So I get mad when patrons get mad at what people wear to theater. Who cares? It drives me crazy. Now, cell phones in the theater obviously drive me nuts, but I do agree a little bit with Jeremy Harris that like if you are used to interacting with people by a quick text message, like there's something to be said for cultural experiences you should enjoy. You should experience them the way you want to experience them. I love being in a theater where someone has like a verbal exclamation. Other people think that's insane. But when people talk during movies and theaters, I go nuts. So my biggest answer is like, if it's not disruptive, who cares? If it is disruptive, then what bothers me is disruption, not food in the theater.
Okay. I will, again, I've given you bonus points, so you've already passed. My problem is, A, it's kind of annoying when they eat food in there, but B, it's the second part when they leave their crap on the ground.
Sure. Yes. The movie theater problem.
That drives me insane.
The movie theater problem. But I think that's a cultural problem that has nothing to do with theater, and we should solve littering as a culture, and that will solve the problem of littering in theaters.
Yeah. I just figure if you don't give them food, they can't litter.
And I don't disagree, but I also think that I love a one-act musical. Get me in, get me out, move me on. But my heart bleeds for producers who are looking to concessions for bonus money.
I know it's a tough one. Producers, yeah, will be like, give as much food as you want.
Give us as much food as you want. So my answer is like, I don't care as long as it doesn't disrupt my experience.
Yep.
And I try not to let it disrupt my experience unless it's loud or unbelievably smelly. So as a producer, just don't put those two things in, and who cares?
Yep. Okay. Well, you just got 6 out of 3. Congratulations.
Yeah!
That's Cy Coleman, and then the Evil Dead pushed you over the edge. So congratulations, you've won.
Thank you very much.
That's all I can give you is my gratitude and praise.
Hey, I appreciate that.
No problem. Awesome. Well, again, Ned, thank you so much for coming on, talking to me today. It's been wonderful to learn about your shows and the Hunted and all the stuff that you're doing right now. So.
Well, I really appreciate you having me, because it's musical theater is my first love as a professional, and I haven't been able to do it in a while, but I write musicals all the time. I'm working on in the next 5 years, I'm working on a new stage musical that's a choose your own adventure, not like Drood where you vote, but where live sports dictate which script we're in.
Nice. Very
so, stay tuned.
I will be watching for that in the next 5 years if we ever get out of our houses.
Hey.
Awesome. All right. Again, thank you, Ned, for coming on today. All right. So we were just speaking with Ned Donovan here on be our guest on Musical Theater Radio. Tune in next week as we speak with another lover of musicals and their passion that is within that genre. I am still your host, Jean-Paul Jovanov, and next time, I'll see you when I see you.